Hello, hello. We're getting started in just a moment.
All right.
If you're joining us live, let us know, or not live, let us know where you're joining us from.
Not live. If you're dead, show us.
No, I mean during the live broadcast.
It's a hot, muggy one today.
It sure is. It sure is.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
There we are.
Here we are.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, we're back to Mondays with Tara and André at 11 a.m. Eastern.
In the same location.
In the same location.
For now.
For now. Yeah, we tried a little experiment the last couple of weeks doing it at night, which was really great.
Yeah.
We'll probably do some more in the evening, but yeah, I like this time. I feel like I don't know, fresher. I don't know what it is. Anyways, so excited about today.
How's that?
Because we're going to air a little bit of our dirty laundry, but in a fun and informative way. Yeah.
I feel like we're often just open books talking about our dirty laundry, but that's good.
It is true. It is true. But I think today we're going to specifically focus on some of the mistakes we've made when opening up and transitioning to being polyamorous.
Yeah, we definitely would not have enough time to cover all the mistakes we've made, no matter how long we want.
No, for sure. So we're going to try to keep it short and tell a few stories, and hopefully you'll learn from our mistakes. So would love to know in the comments, if hands up if you've ever made a mistake.
I'm going to put
a couple hands up. And feel free as we go along in the broadcast to share some of those, ask questions and that sort of thing. So yeah. So we've definitely had our share. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to be making, more mistakes going forward for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely will make mistakes. I think things are a little bit different now, though. I think we have some better tools and but we're not perfect.
No, not perfect. But I wish, I guess it's often said, but I wish we would know now what we should have known back then. Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
We could have, saved ourselves a lot of hurt and other people as well.
Yeah, because we're approaching 5 years being together, and I think it's taken us a good part of that to kind of figure things out. And I mean, I'd love to shorten that timeline for people. I mean, I think the one thing that I love about you, I always say this, and because of your background, it's really noisy outside. Maybe I should close the door.
We're going to die in the heat.
Because of your background as a therapist, I think you have a really great openness to communicating and listening without judgment. And I think that's been a huge part of our success, because that's definitely something that I had to learn. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, I think part of it is that in my training, I was taught how to look at what was going on and look at my emotional investments in it, but then also realize how much of an investment I was putting into anything. So how important was I making it? Right?
Okay.
So I think one of the keys, speaking to a couple that's been together for quite some time, we asked them what it is that was the secret of their success. And they said that they were able to recognize when to make a bigger thing out of things that seemed very, very important, and when were they able to minimize things. So I think being able to be a good listener, often we can be very invested in what we're hearing, but we can also recognize it and try to be a little bit more objective and say, okay, you know what? Let me just calm down a bit. Let me see if I can kind of take away the moral aspect, take away my own personal part of this, and be a little bit more objective. Would that help me to be able to be more open to listening to things? And often it does.
Yeah, but that's a big thing to ask of someone.
It is.
I was going to say, André, because we don't have your special mic, you're going to need to speak up so people can hear you. Lean in. Lean in. So, so I think, the difference for us now is that I feel like when things happen to us, those things kind of power our relationship. I think that's what's really cool about it. So
power our relationship?
Yeah, every time something happens new or different, or we change the way we're doing things, I feel like it powers our relationship. We always advance in it. And I think that's awesome. It's not always the case for everybody. So so we're gonna, in no particular order.
But you're absolutely right. Yeah, just saying to that. I mean, we had starting off the weekend, right? I think it was that sort of thing. We were talking about how we're going to approach something, and we had very, very different approaches to it. Right? We're very different in that way, and I could feel it kind of getting heated a little bit, right? Because we're both very invested in this thing.
Definitely heated.
And definitely heated. But it never became disrespectful.
Heated for you, I think a little bit upsetting for me.
Okay.
Frustrating, maybe.
Fair enough. But we were seeing it differently, right? But I knew in the whole time that we would have our own differences. We may never come to an agreement on this thing, but we were also going to be able to come back and talk about it in a very calm and rational way. And I think that's very important too, knowing that it is that kind of safe haven to be able to say things, know that there's going to be some friction, perhaps even some little bit of not quite confrontation, but there was friction.
There was friction.
There's friction. but we know, despite all that we will be civil and we'll come back to each other and be able to talk about it. Maybe not agree completely, but be able to at least talk about it.
Yeah, what I loved about it is that you were like, and it's hard for me too sometimes when I'm just like, I want to just deal with it like now. Because that's my style. That's the part of me that's got that anxious attachment, I think, and I recognize it. And you were like, let's talk about it later or tomorrow. And in fact, we didn't even wait till later tomorrow. We actually picked it up and did it in a way I thought that was really supportive and like, yeah, we'll figure this out, which I thought was amazing. So,
well, I think one of the other things when we came back to talking about it a little bit sooner than I wanted to, one of the things that did help me in speaking about it was that we were speaking in a neutral area also, right?
Yes, because, in front of your mom.
Because we were going at it and you wanted to continue and I could feel myself getting heated and I was like, well, let's pause. Like, let's, have a little bit of a break. And it was for myself that I could feel myself not wanting to have to go there. But knowing that when we spoke in the neutral area in front of somebody, I knew that we would both remain rather civil, which we did. And we were able to just talk about it in a very open and casual way. Right?
Yeah, you brought it up, which I thought was interesting. I was actually surprised because you were the one that said, let's leave it for now. But anyways, let's get on with it, all the mistakes. So join in the discussion, drop your mistakes in the chat if you wish, because I'm sure there's other people that have done the same thing. So, okay, so in no particular order, I think one of the first things, and we missed a misstep and mistake, was not having all the essential conversations. So there's lots of examples around this.
Yeah, but again, when we're going into it for the first time, when it's unfolding, how would we know what all of those essentials are to be, right? Well, but now we've gone through it and we do know, and we're able to. I wish we would have come across people like us that we could have asked and said, like, hey, like, what's the one-on-one? Like, would it be okay if I do this, or should I never do that, or how do I feel about this? So
yeah, we didn't know about groups like this, and in fact, the first time someone said something to us, it was like they did it a bit of a confrontational way, which didn't really encourage us to really delve into what we might be doing wrong in that circumstance. So I think the first thing that we didn't do, that might have been a mistake, was to have a discussion. We had really minimal discussion around what it was we really wanted in the relationship, like what type of openness we were looking for, what we were interested in, what we were concerned about, those sorts of things. And I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, absolutely. Little things, even like, or maybe big things, like, what level of emotional investment do we want in the other person? Or, what are we willing to take in or not want to share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And then that just doesn't just impact us. It actually impacted other that we met. So for example, I think people, if you've been following us for a while, you may know that our first foray into opening up our relationship was to spend time with individual women. I would love to believe that we weren't unicorn hunting, but I guess it's always possible that might have been the situation. Although the people we met were we're very fortunate, I think, very strong women who were very in touch with what it was that they wanted. And I think they clearly communicated that. So I think we were fortunate in that way.
Did you see the asterisks in my eyes?
The asterisks, yes.
Yeah, as you're saying that about
unicorn hunting.
Yeah. So I get that you don't want to be unicorn hunting in the sense that you were wanting to take advantage of somebody or, sexualize them as an object, whatever it is. But that being said, there are people who do want to be unicorn hunters 100%. And do want to be unicorns. So it's all good for.
Oh yeah, for sure. We did a whole talk on unicorn hunting. If you didn't see it, it's really great. I feel like we presented a pretty balanced view of it because it's not necessarily unicorn. Some people may not know what unicorn hunting is, but usually that's a term used when it's often heterosexual couples looking for a primarily a woman. And this can happen. And I know there was some comments in the group about how this can be this can be unethical because there's lots of situations that arise, such as when people, there's some couples privilege that sometimes happens where people set up specific rules that impact that other person without even, telling them about it or being totally clear about what they want. And I think one of the people in the group just mentioned that as something that comes up for them, this idea of hierarchy.
Right. And the idea of the couple's privilege, in a sense, you're not necessarily offering each person an equal chair at the table, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly. So you may be setting rules that impact them, but not.
But at the same time, some people also argue that the unicorn might have a lot of power, right? Being like in an S&M relationship, and they can say to the couple whether or not they want to participate in certain things or ask certain things of the couple as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we had that experience with some of our first friends that we met.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too, and I guess I don't feel like it's unicorn hunting in the sense that like all the people, with the exception of one, who just kind of fell off the face of the earth, we still have relationships with, friendships with. So I like to believe that we did it as ethically as we could have at the beginning.
So the idea that we're still friends with them is a good indication that they were not feeling as though they were unicorn.
Huh? I think so. I mean, we'd have to ask them. Maybe we need to ask them. Actually, they're in the group.
Right. So what about you? Have you ever been asked to be a unicorn? And were you flattered, offended? What were you thinking?
I definitely get approached on some of the websites from couples and that sort of thing, looking for a single woman to join them. I always have a little bit of exception to the term adding in or joining, because it feels like I feel slightly objectified. Having said that, I have had more recently an experience, but I'm friends and have been a lover to both these people. So that didn't feel like a unicorn in that sense, because I was with a couple, but I also had individual relationships with them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which I like. And I think for some people, that's how they want it. If they're solo polyamory, they want to have a situation where they can have their own individual relationships with each person. And it's more of on an equal basis. I mean, I think it's tricky, though, when you nest together and that sort of thing. Like if you have a nesting partner, you can have that little bit level of hierarchy more than if you lived separately. I don't know. You were going to say something.
Gone with the wind.
Gone with the wind. So one of the other essential conversations we probably didn't have was, not clearly communicating to others what we wanted. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we should admit this.
Sure.
Should we admit it?
Admit everything. Just say everything. The truth will set you free.
Well, when we first started, should we tell the little story?
You've opened the door. Let's hear it.
We were really early in our relationship, so people don't know us. This is kind of the origin story. I mean, there's more to it, but the basic one is that we were fooling around one night and having a good time. And I think you said...
Having a very good time.
Very good time, as usual. And you said, oh, it'd be really handy if I had another set of hands here. And I was like, ooh, that would be hot. And then you were like, really? And then you were going away the next day, I think it was. And
I was leaving for 6 weeks with another girlfriend.
Yeah. So we instantly set up a profile on OkCupid, a single profile. So this is where I was getting to the mistake, a single profile that we both accessed. And so I think in hindsight, that was probably not the best way. Well, I think people didn't always know who they were talking to. And this idea when it's a single account, it's like the couple is one person. And I think that's where I probably wouldn't do that same thing anymore.
But hang on a second. I think we were acting as one single entity because this was new to us. And it was giving us this feeling of bondedness and security. We were together doing this. And we were also very forthcoming in it, right? We had both of our pictures on there. We were announcing that we were a couple. So it's not as though we were wanting to, have the other person identify as one. I think we were rather transparent in it. Yeah,
I think we're pretty transparent. But in hindsight, I probably would have kept the separate accounts and then spoke, which is what we have now. We've canceled that one, and we have accounts on Field.
Do we still have that?
I don't even know how to get to it. Maybe there's a million people waiting to meet us, and little do we know, we're missing out.
So my ex is high up in the corporate world, and she works for the company that owns OkCupid, and I got locked out of my account somehow. I've always been wondering if she cares enough to like kind of block me or something. Probably.
Maybe that's why I keep getting these weird messages from OkCupid. She's sabotaging. I doubt it.
I don't think we're on her map, so it's okay.
Okay, and the other, I think, says, just to move on, the other essential conversation I think we didn't have at the beginning is with talking to each other and others about sexual health and testing, STI testing, and actually requiring that. Like, that's now one of my boundaries.
This is our PSA, right? So we always, I think every live, we probably repeat this about getting tested. And, in the beginning, when I was in the mono world, I would say it was probably more difficult for me, well, because I was at a different place also, but I was concerned of how it would be perceived if I were to bring up the idea of talking about sexual tests and STIs and STDs. And would they think of me as any way kind of corrupt or perverse or whatever it was? I had these ideas about it, and it was not so fluid, not so easy to bring it up and announce it initially. But as I became more confident in myself and more accustomed to being able to do it, I was able to bring it up in a very matter-of-fact kind of way. But I always felt good about myself having brought it up because I knew that I was being transparent about it and I was wanting to alert them. But also, I felt a sense of responsibility to you and my other partners that I must maintain our agreements. And one of our agreements is that we do talk to people about sexual testing, about their sexual health, their sexual history, because even if we do use condoms, it doesn't eliminate, it reduces the risk of STIs. So we want to know what's going on, but also my responsibility is that if something should happen, I have to hit that stop button and say, okay, everybody who is involved with me, something's going on, we need to alert the community, and as we've always done in the past, and it just makes it a very secure and safe way, and it builds trust. I can trust that my partner's doing the same and we're doing those things, and it gives us a very good feeling of being open and secure and being open and secure.
Yeah. And I think it also encourages others to do the same.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a conversation last week with a friend and lover of ours, and they were telling us about, being at this party and all this other stuff. And then she paused after and she said, and obviously I went and got all my STI testing. But she what do you say? She mentioned it. What's the word? Oh my God, I lied. I'm not fresher in the morning.
You are.
She offered it. She offered this information to me without even asking, because we are potentially going to be seeing them very soon.
Oh, fantastic.
So I thought that was cool because, people know that about us. And so they behave the same way and they share that information. Shared. That's the word I was working. Disclosure. Thank you. Ooh, oh, hey, Laura.
It's the beautiful Laura Sanchez. Happy belated birthday, Laura.
Yes. Those are some good comments, too. Okay, we'll go back to some of those. So we talked about the unit. So shifting to activities of doing things together to ones where we date separately without a plan or conversations or self-work. That's a big one.
Do you have an example of something like that?
Do I? No, it's just more general because I think when we first started, we did a lot of things together. We started meeting individual people, and then we moved to going to parties and stuff like that. But then we branched out to starting to meet people on our own and having dates on our own. So I think for me, some of the things that I didn't do, which kind of goes into the next mistake, is kind of really thought about how this might impact me and what I can do to create, self-soothe and, deal with things like that before we jumped into that.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was like when we first started doing it? Did you have a feeling or thoughts that came up? Can you recall what it was?
Yeah, for me, it was like that intense feeling of jealousy and just restlessness with the feeling. It's like you feel it in your entire body, where your chest is heavy and you're wondering what they're doing and you're upset. And then you're upset because you think, oh, I should know better. I talk about this all the time. I mean, this was still early in what we were doing, but we were already starting this group and all that stuff. I'm like, I should know better. I should be better at this. So then you layer on top of all that heaviness, judgment of yourself for having those feelings rather than just allowing yourself to have the feelings and then kind of working through them, like breaking them down bit by bit, which is what, this is what we teach in the program. And this is what, I've learned to do myself.
But, it's interesting how we may in the beginning and perhaps even fall back onto it on occasion, the idea that we might reproach ourselves for having our own feelings is very normal human feelings. So, so what, you're not perfect and you sometimes feel inadequate or small or jealous. Well, it's fine to have those feelings. We won't simply have only those feelings. We'll go past those, but it's okay to acknowledge and have those feelings for sure.
Yeah. I definitely felt like that. Like, how about you?
Yeah. And in fact, I was surprised to what level of jealousy I would feel on occasion, because I thought I'd rather secure about it, be able to intellectualize it, whatever. And yet sometimes it pops up and wow, like I didn't know. But it's really cool is that I hung on to this crazy ride long enough to have another feeling about jealousy. And I remember one time you were going out someplace and I caught myself as being jealous. And, jealousy may feel rather uncomfortable if you've ever experienced it. It's not great.
I'm sure people have.
Maybe some have. But at the same time, I was aware that, wow, like I'm feeling jealous because I'm really into you. I'm really invested in you. And it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I was able to acknowledge it and be like, okay, I'm not feeling comfortable right at this moment, but I know it's going to pass. But it was interesting to see that I could feel that way about you. But then also, I knew that you felt strongly about me, and that security made me feel a little bit less jealous. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I knew that after it was survivable. So yeah, maybe it wasn't thrilling at that moment, but I knew that it was also an indication of my investment and that we were strong enough to feel we'd be okay.
Yeah, and I think the other part of the plan that we kind of missed, and this is again something that we work with couples and that we work with, is having like this idea of a before, during, and aftercare plan, and knowing what you want to do before, if there's something you want to do in the middle, and then how you might reconnect after. If it's important to you, if you feel that you're going to have some triggered feelings, it's sometimes a comfort to have those things in place.
Right.
Or know that you're not going to hear from the person. Like one of the things we do sometimes is we do a bit of a check-in, but it's not always possible, right? You may be somewhere where you're busy, that sort of thing. So knowing that, okay, the person is not going to check in with me until later is also comforting, I think, for me.
Yeah. And one thing about those check-ins, I think they're wonderful to do them before, during, and after. But sometimes I feel that if I'm asking for that, am I over-inserting myself? Am I wanting to kind of like have you check in as a way of like, why don't you going too deep into this? So if you're checking in with me, then it kind of keeps me in your consciousness, right? But at the same time, maybe what I could also do is I might think, well, when I'm on a date, like, yeah, of course I love you and I want to check in with you, but I also might want to just go carefree. So if I want to be able to just kind of disconnect for a while, then I should imagine that my partner might also benefit by being able to do that as well. So I will try to imagine what it might be like for you as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
but also how it might be like for the person that you're with as well, and this is where, some of the things, people aren't consenting to. Oh, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to take a break now. Like I had that happen in the middle of a date. Someone was texting back and forth with their partner, and because their partner was actually having feelings of jealousy, which was really interesting. And then they were trying to manage it on their phone while having a date with me. And, so it became a thing. And then we ended up having a whole discussion about it, hashtag can't help being a coach. But anyway, I think, if you're going to check in or not, I think that's something to consider. Yeah.
So were they able to successfully help manage their partners?
No, they decided to end the date and go help them, which was interesting because I don't think that was, I probably wouldn't have suggested that.
Because
it's not going to help the person regulate, and it's not also your own needs are not being considered, right? If you're going to drop and also me, like your other person that you're with, it's like, oh, okay, all of a sudden, I opened my whole night up for them, and the plan was to be together, and then they kind of, we've since gotten over it, but it was a bit. I felt it was a bit slightly less considerate than I would have. And I don't
That's so
think,
interesting.
I think that it didn't really help the person manage that feeling.
You think that maybe they were in some ways enabling them to have that?
Yeah, in some ways.
But, on the other side of that, though, I can see, the hierarchy, they prioritize their partner and they were alerted to their partner's high level of need and were wanting to be attentive to it. I mean, it's such a delicate balance, right? I mean, when do you find that you are helping? When are you enabling? Right? So I guess when we have to look at, well, is this part of a repetition? So if there is something going on and there's a one-time need for it, then I think I would try to be very attentive to it. But if it is something that is recurring, am I simply participating in that repetition? Am I simply enabling that type of behavior to exist? What are we doing to progress that? Where can we go beyond this feeling? How can we have another feeling that would be healthier, would be more comfortable?
No, for sure. I mean, and I don't want anyone to not help a partner that's in pain, but I did feel a little bit like put out from that. And I think what was interesting about that situation, which is another mistake people make, I don't think we fall into this, maybe we do this sometimes, but is having to have a date on the same day that your partner has a date. So this was the exact circumstance, now that you were talking, that I remember, is that their partner was supposed to have a date as well. And that person bailed. And so their other partner went out with me, and they were experiencing some feelings.
Well, for sure. Because they had what they thought was going to be a safety net to occupy them, to make them feel wanted, to make them feel secure. And when that fell through, now they were left free falling and were not able to self-regulate and say, okay, you know what? I'm still cool. This is all right. You still go do your thing. Instead, their valve was broken open, and now they're like, well, help me, I'm falling, so come
save me. Yeah. So this is one of the mistakes, probably we made a little bit too at the beginning, is this idea of a distanglement, where you identify as autonomous people that happen to be in a relationship with others, rather than just as a couple, and like disentangling all of that and being able to do things on your own and all that stuff. Oh, Debbie's asking what would been a better way to deal with it.
Well, like I was saying, I think what I would like to do is find out if this is in fact a one-time thing that, generally they seem as though they're able to self-regulate and feel rather secure, then great. But if this is part of a repetition, then I'd want to look at what is at play and what factors could we look at in order to create a greater secure feeling in that person.
I think there's also, with these two, there was some underlying things as well, is that because he feels I'm strict when she's on a date and he's at home. So that was sort of part of it as well. Yeah. So, Anyway.
It's not entirely surprising, because I think very often we will find partners who will help support our repetitions, right, until we work through them.
Do you support my repetitions? What are my repetitions?
What's our time look like? Yeah, of course we do. Of course we do, both positive and negative. Right. But I think what's really great is when we kind of have dialogue and conversation about these things, so we can raise our level of awareness in that. So I can say, well, yeah, I'm going into an old familiar pattern, but I'm aware of this, and I can now either continue to participate in this, maybe I like it, or maybe it's serving another purpose, or I can also say, you know what, there's another way of being. I don't want to simply just fall into this thing, and we can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So one of our other mistakes, maybe not, we talked a bit about the jealousy part, in understanding our stuff. So I think it's important to understand really what's going on with you. And I think one of the things that plays into things for many people is knowing what our attachment style is and how we're going to relate to other people by default in relationships.
I got distracted. I'll admit it, busted. I read Debbie's comment about why not asking your friend's partner to join you on the date.
That's a fun idea. I never thought of that, but that might have been a good idea. Sure.
Yeah, it would change the dynamics. It would change the date, but who knows? It would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know if they were doing dating together. I don't think they were, but it might have been interesting. That's cool. Great suggestion.
Maybe your friend's partner could have been your unicorn. The two of you guys bring them in.
Maybe. So I think, just to go back to me, so I said, talking about our stuff, making sure you understand what your stuff are. So, and I know this is super helpful. What did you say?
Stuff is.
Stuff is?
Stuff are.
Stuff are.
Stuff are.
Stuff. What? Your
And
stuff?
And Sophie and stuff are.
No, but like understanding our attachment styles are, because I think, I just did something fairly new to us, like during our time, but understanding where you're coming from in terms of like, if you're like that I have, while mostly secure, I have some anxious tendencies, and people who have, say, avoidant tendencies might have a harder time to approach difficult conversations, or might hold back and then feel resentful.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just even allowing ourselves to even enter into a relationship, right? We might find that our attachment style prohibits too great of a level of intimacy, and we might find ourselves acting in other ways that avoids it. So can we know where we're coming from? Can we have some rudimentary understanding of that? And also then can we hear and appreciate and listen to where our partners are coming from?
Yeah.
Very important. Good to know our stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So knowing your stuff. So that's why part of our program is also, we do talk about attachment styles. Oh, and a baby poly. I love that. Baby polys. Any tips? Oh, so many tips.
Where to start?
This is part of it. Knowing what mistakes you're going to make for sure. And we definitely have we have all this stuff in our program.
That's, I think it's what you just said, but basically knowing that you are going to make some mistakes, and that's okay too, right? So have some humor about it as well. Being able to laugh at ourselves. So important. Yeah.
It's not so humorous though. Come on. It's
painful. The pain
painful.
is not fun.
I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing. We want to save people the pain, or shorten the timeline of the pain. Because there is some pain you have to go through, I think. But I think what's, we said it before, it's like, I think all of that fueled making it more powerful. And, when we have dips, the dips are shorter, for sure.
Yeah, the recovery time is much, much shorter. That's for sure. And it kind of ties into the question that somebody just asked us: did we ever have a negative experience that made us want to step back from the lifestyle entirely? And I would say yes, I had one. Actually, I remember I was with you, and I was with my partner Arzu, and it was not going so well. There were, hey, you're a different person, and they're a different person, and then you got me in the middle. I'm a different person, and it seemed as though we were all headed in different directions. And I was like, you know what? It's just not worth it. I just don't want to have to do this. There's too many complications. I thought it was going to be just sex. I thought the whole thing was just going to always be a lot of sex. And it wasn't. There's a lot of communication, a lot of work, a lot of heartache, a lot of frustration. And it was just like, you know what? Maybe it's just not for me. I was seriously thinking about
for sure.
sending walking papers to both of you, and myself included. But then I was able to step back and say, wait a second, okay, so there is a fair amount to be paid out, but what is the return? Is it worth it? And I thought of all the experiences I have and the way that I'm able to navigate that openness, to be able to say, I love you, I love them, we are here and we're human. That was worth it for me. And it made me say, you know what? Wanting to disconnect, wanting to cut it all off, it might be easier in the immediate, but my return, my experience of the universe would not have been as fantastic. So it's not always so easy, but we talk through it, we work through it, and well, here we are.
Yeah, no, exactly. I definitely felt like throwing in the towel a few times. It can be gut wrenching, like really gut wrenching. But I think what came back for us, for me, for sure, is that I knew that this is what I wanted. And I think I knew that if I didn't keep going through, or that we put a pause on it, which is something people do all the time. Well, let's just take a break until we're feeling better, and then think that in like 6 months from now, they're magically going to feel better. You know what I mean? We kind of pushed through and kept going. And I think it's totally worth it. It's just, it is some work. And, we want to make it easier for you to do that.
Going to the idea of the pause, again, I always see both sides of it. So we're not feeling it. It's not so fantastic. There's some friction, there's some insecurity, there's some jealousy, there's some concern. So let's just take a pause, go back to where we were. And that could be fine for a moment. But if you're only taking a pause and then hitting the unpause button.
Yes, the play.
You're going to pick up right where you left off. So
exactly.
What has changed? What have you done to progress the situation?
Yeah.
So if you're taking a pause and just taking a pause, then it's going to be just where you left it. Are you taking a pause and doing something to address what the issue is? That's entirely different.
Yeah, like I worked with a couple and they had done just that. They had something that had happened actually several years ago, and it was sort of festering. And during COVID, they decided they would use this opportunity to take a pause and work through the things with me. And it was amazing how they came out of that. But they didn't just pause. Like you said, they were actively doing things to address the key points, the key things in their relationship that needed strengthening, and basically rebuilding the relationship strength from the bottom up. And then having the opportunity then to open up themselves up to new experiences, which was amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
It was amazing to watch, actually.
Yeah, it's great to have that openness, willingness, and to go at it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because sometimes you can't do it yourself. That's the thing. It's not so easy to see your own things. Like I say, I feel like I benefit from you. You can sometimes pick yourself up out of yourself, I think, and be you as therapist in how you deal with situations. And I think that's been super helpful. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Where are we?
So one of the other things is maybe, and this is maybe covered a bit, is not expressing our needs and feeling disappointed or frustrated because the other person didn't magically figure them out for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we talked about that very recently, right? The idea of how do we express ourselves? How do we let it be known what we're wanting? And again, it's going back to the 4 steps of the cure, right? Knowing what it is you're wanting, finding a way of getting it, and being happy having it. So if you are not able to self-identify or self-express how you're wanting to be treated, the things you're wanting, and you don't get them, well, then what were you expecting in a sense? So it goes back to the very base. How do we express what we're wanting? That being said, though, we're wanting to try and pick up where the other person's at, right? So we went out recently with somebody that we've been out with before, and we like each other, obviously, right? We get together, but yet you and I both were kind of feeling, well, we're not quite sure where exactly we are with them. Where are they? Where are they? And it comes back to this idea of being able to communicate what we're wanting, but also then finding out from them what it is they're wanting. Yeah. And it's not so easy.
It's not so easy
all the time, going out. My concern is like, well, I don't want to, I don't ever want to make the other person feels that they're being put upon or that it's difficult for them. I like it to try and develop organically, but sometimes if somebody is not as expressive, it might be difficult to gauge where they're coming from, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Someone's commenting, my poor mother is not understanding and I'm so sad I can't convince her of my polyam. I feel you on this one. Same situation. I don't know I can't see who it is because it says Facebook user. I'll check it out when we get out of the broadcast. I'll know who you are. But I did open up to my family over 1.5 years now ago, and it wasn't. And there's really no convincing them. That's the thing. People will believe the thing that they want to believe. You can only, like for me, the simple answer is the only thing you can do is be confident in that this is something that you want for yourself and why it's important to you, and you can communicate that to them. And then it's up to them. It's like a boundary. It's up to them how they want to react, behave accordingly. And it's not been, I'm saying this quite simply, it's been a tough journey, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that because it was a tough journey and, still working through those, but that's definitely something,
Some would say their business is none of my business. So how they feel about it is not my business.
Yeah.
I would love them to come on board, but there's more than one model, and they've chosen one, and that is for them. And they may even go so far as to want to tell you how you should be, but you must be confident within your own point, as you say. But essentially, they'll be the way that they are, and I needn't consume myself.
Yeah, but it can be sad. I get that. I've been sad. You've been sad. You've seen me cry a lot because it's hard when parents. You can only speak your truth and live your authenticity. Others will judge as they see the world through their eyes. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. That's exactly it. And it is sad and it is hard. And I mean, the one thing for me that I've experienced is that. My family has started to experience me. I keep being present and allowing them the opportunity to experience me as myself again. And I think that's helped them come to terms with this type of relating that's not their jam. more than not their jam. But anyways, okay. The other thing I just wanted to say, there was a good comment in the group about making too many rules for each other and limiting where relationships go outside of ours. Yeah. And I think we probably did that at the beginning for sure. But I think that's where we've made a big leap in changing.
Yeah, but you said making too many rules. I think that the level of rulemaking is directly proportionate to our level of security. Right? Yes. We put in these rules, these parameters, these agreements to help us feel secure, or so we imagine these things are going to make us feel secure. So if I can control the situation by putting rules together, I will feel secure. It doesn't necessarily work that conveniently, right? Because sometimes rules are broken, or they're not noticed, or they're not even known.
Yes, exactly. I mean, one of the things we did at the beginning was I don't know if we set it out as a rule per se, but I think there was maybe an understanding about no overnight dates.
Right.
And in fact, we did transition to you traveling by yourself with a partner for an entire week, which was a big adjustment for us. And then now we're looking at a more coming up soon, doing separate trips with a couple that we see, but us seeing the opposite partner.
Well, you're going to be tripping. I'm going to be here.
We are going to be here, but one person's going to come here, and then I'm going to go there.
It'll be strange, right?
Yeah,
it'll be wonderful and intimate and weird.
It's going to be so interesting. I'm sure there'll be lots to learn from that. Right. I think there's an overlapping Monday. Maybe not. I was going to say that'd be fun to have a discussion about it if they're open to it.
But I think is talking about open to it. So I think that is one of the fantastic components and mysteries of this. Is the idea of being open to things. Because 5 years ago, you said we're coming up on 5 years. I don't know that I would have been able to say, well, wait a second. So I'm going to have what's going to appear like a girlfriend, partner, somebody, and they're going to go away to see this other person while that other person's going to come stay with me. I mean, the whole thing sounds so complicated. Weird. And what about all the feelings that are going to come out? As opposed to being like, wow, this is going to be great. Like, you're going to be down there having a blast. They're going to become like their partner's going to come up here. I'm going to be doing this. We're going to have a blast. We're going to know that we're like good together. And it's like, who'd have known? But it's the idea of being open and having a partner who's open to possibilities. And that's just so awesome.
Yeah. And doing the work. I think that's the big thing, having those mistakes and learning from them. I think that's the big thing. And yeah, I would never have imagined. I would have said, if somebody told me this, like, 5 years ago, I would have said, you are crazy. This is never going to happen. I'm not sharing. I hear that. I see that in a lot of group. I saw that this idea of sharing, and that means I'm not special. And there's so much to say about that.
Let me say about that, about not sharing. So this weekend we went out we went to an amazing event. But going there, we met with one couple, friends of ours, for a drink first. And you were dressed up. You were kind of like looked like a bit of a theme. You looked like the character from Pulp Fiction there.
Yeah, Mrs. Meade Wallace.
And you look adorable. You're sitting there and I was like, wow, you look so cute. And I was thinking, how could this other person not want you? And all of a sudden I thought, like, they're going to be taking part of you away because you're so special. And I'm going to be losing you. So I thought, just for a moment, it was just a quick feeling. But then I thought, but wait a second. There's so much of you to love. There's enough to go around. But also, you have been with me because you want to be with me. You come back and it gives me that feeling that, yes, there's enough to share. It's a universe of abundance. But for a moment, I got triggered into thinking how special you were, that somebody else was going to play with my toy, take from my plate, do whatever you want to call it. And it was limiting in a sense until I caught myself and thought, no, you have an abundance of love. And then also, there were other people around wanting to love me.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had the similar look to you watching you interact with the woman and thinking, so great. It's so great. I love it.
The event, by the way, if you've not gone to, we went to karaoke, which was karaoke in the nude, which I'd never been to. I'd never been to karaoke before. Hard to believe. But anyway. It was amazing. So you get up on stage and you sing your song, and if you want, you can disrobe. And I think like 95% of people get up there, and it's the full Monty. And it was a wild crowd, very queer, very loving, very fun.
It was so awesome. Yeah, they actually do a striptease, and people had like some serious routines. So we got to like up our game. Like, we actually practiced the next day trying to figure out what song we might do, because it was like we just kind of jumped in and winged it. So.
Yeah, karaoke, very
Yeah.
fun.
So somebody's asking any tips for discussing rules and boundaries with significant other. Yes, tons of tips.
Mhm.
We actually have a video on rules and agreements, and that's part of our program because it's so important. I think that's the thing. So to wrap up today, probably didn't say at the beginning. I said, so have we had mistakes? Yes. Do we still make them?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes a lot fewer. But we talk about them and we come back from them a lot sooner, right?
Yeah.
There's less negativity brought with it. Far fewer resentments. I don't know if I have any resentments at the time, but we'll take a look.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like we have the recovery time is so quick because we've built up the skills and tools and in our arsenal, not a good term, but you know what I mean? We have them on board with ourselves, that we carry them with us, and allows us to exponentially decrease the time. And I think because we're not holding on to them, you don't end up having those like tears, those micro traumas to the relationship, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
And we said earlier, I love this idea of using experiences and learning and to strengthen and power the relationship, because I think it does have the possibility. And if you view it that way, I think that's part of the thing. Yeah. I'll just keep going. Yeah. I think the other part of it is that we can anticipate things that might come up and communicate before they happen. So for example, this idea of traveling separately, I'm sure we're going to have long conversations, and we're probably going to have those conversations with the people we're traveling with too, about how is this going to work? How do we want to check in? Like, are there things that we're comfortable with, not comfortable with, that sort of thing. And so I think that would be really important to do. So I think as part of the way we've grown over this time is knowing that we need to have those conversations in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever possible, really try and talk about things beforehand. But if you haven't had the chance to talk about it beforehand and it comes up, then speak from your feelings and talk about how you are feeling, and use the I and me statements, right? And try to avoid the always and yous and all those things. But yeah, it's all good. Yeah,
because you can't avoid all the mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes and that sort of thing. But our job here in the group and what we do through our program is to make it a little bit easier for you, so that you can reduce the time to recovery, make less mistakes, have less self-doubt, reduce the arguments. Oh, the arguments. Those are the tough parts, I think, for people, is the feeling like you're always arguing. And I think we've had some moments where it felt like that, because you're really feeling into those emotions, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah, it sure is. But also to that point, arguing, right? It's not something necessarily to be avoided. In fact, we need to learn how to argue well. One of the most toxic things for a relationship is when we stop communicating. When I just go into my corner, you go into yours, and we're not talking, it's communication breakdown, very hard to come back from. So we argue, and we argue well. We argue successfully. We argue with consideration. So there's no name calling. There's no generalizations. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things to avoid. So can we argue in a way that feels safe? Arguing is simply a discussion that is rather heated and animated, invested, but it can be done in a way where we are able to argue productively and with consideration. So go at it and have it. Say everything.
Well, it doesn't have to be an argument, though.
No, but the word argument, I don't think is necessarily such a horrible thing.
No, for sure. It's just
if we approach it in a healthy way.
Yeah, for sure. And that's part of what we do in our program. We have a whole process called attunement communication, which I've talked to several couples and people, and it's super awesome. And we've been practicing it for quite a while now, and it's definitely helpful. So want to make sure we get that out there to, we've been talking a bit about our open relationships and polyamory mastery program. That's the official name. It's a bit long. But basically what it is, if we put together the best of the best, just for you, all the training, the tools, the activities, and that sort of thing, so that you can finally, it's the step-by-step process. We can guide you through all of these things so you can navigate your open or polyamorous relationship in a way that feels safe and secure and supported and fun. And increases your satisfaction. Like that's what we're all about, is increased satisfaction. All we want that. Oh, Lisa's asking, when does your program start? We're starting the second. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the prompt. We're starting the second week of September. But if you join now, we will make sure we get you into action right away. There's the awesome, you can meet with us. We have a one-on-one where you can meet with us to get started. And then we have some great tools already set up that you can get started on.
Cool.
So I'm pretty excited about this. I think that, it's a good time of the year to do this. We're heading into September, start of school.
Yeah.
And then we're going to slowly be creeping into the Thanksgiving and
Halloween.
Christmas, Halloween, like all the times where you want to be in your relationship and feel great about it.
Yeah.
So I'll put up
A good time to feel great.
Yeah, it's a good time to feel great.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put these in the comments as well. But you can, if you're not sure if this is for you, or you want to talk about what's going on in your relationship and the mistakes that you're making, you can book a free call with us. If you're already ready to jump in, we would love to have you in Polyamory Mastery. Oh, and boundaries was the boundaries last week. If you still want to get your boundaries cheat sheet from last week, you can get that. Just put boundaries in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put mastery in the chat if you want to know more about the thing. We'll send you some information. But you can always reach out to us to chat. We're here. Sure. We're queer. And that's it for today.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Whew, lots of dirty laundry. I hope you guys learned how to avoid some of our mistakes. And we'll chat with you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.